I'm going to show you how to add simple navigation to your interactive document. So looking at this first Pinterest tile page, you can see at the bottom right, I've added some navigation buttons. So this pink button with the square grid is the navigation button that will direct users back to this Pinterest style board. And the button to the right with the green strokes is going to be my full screen and exit full screen mode button. So when the user clicks on this button, the interactive PDF will either expand to full screen or it will minimize back down to regular size in the PDF reader. So I'm going to show you how I created these two buttons. We're going to go to the A Master page. And as you can see here, these buttons have already been created, but I'm going to show you step by step how I created each of them. So let's start with this grid button that will direct users back to the grid page. So what I did is I make sure I'm on the right layer, and the layer is a navigation layer. And I'm going to click here on my rectangle tool, or you can press M on your keyboard, and I'm going to draw out a square. So I'm going to hold down the Shift key and drag out a square, and I'm going to make it kind of big enough so I can see what I'm doing here, because I can always resize it later. Okay, so my square is created. Cancel that. And I'm going to remove this stroke that's on the square right now. Now what I want to do is I want to make a grid from this square. So I'm going to go to my scripts panel, and to access the scripts panel, you will go up to Window, Utilities, and Scripts. But I've already have it here, so I'm just going to come here, and I'm going to open up the scripts panel. So click on it, and I'm going to navigate to Make Grid. So Make Grid is actually under Applications, Samples, JavaScript, and then you scroll down. Everything's listed alphabetically to Make Grid. So I'm going to click this Make Grid. Actually, before I click the Make Grid, I want to make sure that my square is selected. And now I'm going to double click on Make Grid, and this dialog box comes up and it asks me how many rows and columns do I want and what's the gutter size. So I'm going to go for 3 rows, 3 columns, and I'm going to increase the gutter to 24 because I want there to be a lot of space in between each square. Then I click OK, and as you can see, and maybe you can't see it right now, let me just zoom in. So now I have my grids created. I'm going to go ahead and just, because it's really difficult to see, I'm going to select each of these grids just by holding down my mouse and dragging out, just dragging out a marquee, and it'll highlight all the different squares I just created. I'm going to fill it in with a color, so I'm going to fill it in with this pink color. All right, there we go. And while my squares are selected, I'm going to hit Control G. I'm going to group them because I want them to be sized and I want them to all move together. So now that it's grouped, everything is moving together as one unit. Now I'm going to resize this this icon basically down to a small size so it will work as a navigation button. And you can do that by hovering over the corner until you get those 2 arrows that are diagonal. You can hit the Shift key and move your mouse one way or another to resize that grid. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to just see what the dimensions are for this. This grid is 36 pixels by 36 pixels, so I want this to be the same. I'm just going to click on this, select it, go up to my control panel, and I'm going to hit 36. Okay, so now I have my grid, and I'm going to add a drop shadow to this grid. And I want the drop shadows to look the same. So I've already created an object style for my icons, and it's called drop shadow icons. And it's going to click on that. And there's my drop shadow. And now I'm going to recreate this icon as well. So what I'm going to do with that one is I'm going to hit the M key. I'm going to click once on the page with my rectangle tool. I'm going to click, and it's going to bring up a dialog box and ask me what dimensions I want. So I want the dimensions to be the exact same as the grid icon, and I'll click OK. So now I have this perfect square, and the styling here is an outline using this kind of a seafoam color, and I'm going to increase the stroke weight to about 3, and I'm going to create this inner square as well. So while this is selected, I will hit Control C and copy that square, and to duplicate the square, I'm going to hit Shift Control Alt V, and that helps me to paste the square in place. So even though you don't see anything happen, I've actually duplicated the square and it is pasted right on top of the previous square. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to drag the square, and I'm going to hold down the Shift and the Alt key so that it drags and resizes from the center and to the exact same proportions. So it's still a square proportion, and I'm going to let go. And now I have this nice double square. So what I want to do now is I want to add some rounded corners, and I'm going to go up to the rounded corner settings and hit rounded corners. And I think these rounded corners are a little bit too round, so I'm going to adjust that by moving the arrow up or down to adjust the corner. That looks about right. This inner one, I'm going to adjust it a little bit more. Okay, that looks right to me. Again, I'm going to select these two. I'm going to hit Control G and group them together. So now they're moving in one unit. And I'm going to apply the object style to both of these. Okay. So now both of these have the object style applied to them. I have both of those icons created. They're created on the master page. So now when I go back to my regular pages, I can see now that these icons show up on each page. And they're right there in the corner exactly where I set them. So now if I want to add another page, which actually I have, so there's a blank page. On this blank page, I don't have to do anything. Those navigation buttons are already set up. And if I even want to create another new page, all I have to do is hit the new page icon. And again, you see those two icons are already set up because they are on the master page. So now I want to add some interactivity to both of these buttons. As I mentioned before, I want this pink grid to navigate back to this page, which is the Pinterest style page, and I want this double square, I want that to be the basically expand, maximize, and minimize button. So it'll maximize to full screen, or it'll minimize back into the Adobe Acrobat window once it's exported into Adobe Acrobat. So in order to do this, what I need to do is I need to create buttons. Before I create these buttons, I need to create a hyperlink destination, because once the button will be hyperlinked to the hyperlink destination on the page. So I'm going to make sure that this first page here is created as a hyperlink destination. And how I do that is I'll go over here to my toolbar and I will go over to the hyperlink panel, and I'm going to click on the flyout menu and simply click new hyperlink destination. So that is done, and I'm going to name it tile page. The type is a page, and this is everything I need to do. So I'm going to click OK. Now I'm going to go back to my master page, and I'm going to click here on my button, and let me zoom in so we can see. So this button here now is selected. I'm going to click on the buttons and forms icon, and the panel flies out, and this is going to become a button. So I'm going to select button, name of the button. I'll just name it Pinterest. Well, maybe I'll just name it something else. Let me name it tiles. I'm going to, on release or tap is when the action is going to take place, so we'll just leave that there. For the action, we want to go to destination. So I'm going to click go to destination, and then it's going to ask me what the destination is. So far, I only have one destination, that is the tile page. So I'm going to leave destination on tile page, and I'm going to leave the zoom as it is. Now I want to create a rollover state so that when the cursor rolls over, or the mouse rolls over this button, that you can see something is happening. It either highlights or darkens or what have you. So I have the rollover state selected under buttons and forms, and what I'm going to do is, now that this is selected, I'm going to go up to the color panel, and I'm going to type in a value to reduce the tint, and I think I'm going to try 60 and press enter, and you can see that the color changes. So the normal color is this kind of a light magenta, and when the mouse rolls over this button, it will roll over to a 60% tint. Now I want to create a button for my full screen, exit full screen icon. So I'm just going to zoom in here to my icon and select it. I'm going to go to the buttons and forms panel, create a new button. We'll name it full screen. And the action we're going to take is going to be zoom, view zoom. So I'm going to hit view zoom, and full screen is the zoom view setting that I want. But I'm also going to add another action. It will be also view zoom, but I'm going to select fit in window so that when the user initially clicks on this icon, it will zoom to full screen, and when they click it again, it will be in fit in window in the Adobe Reader. For the rollover state, I am going to again use the 60% tint that I did on the other button. Hit enter. So you can see those are different now. And I'm also going to add a text hint. And that's enter or exit full screen mode. And that is what's going to pop up when the mouse hovers over this icon. And I'm going to click away, and that saves all my settings. Now I'm going to export this document just to check and make sure this is actually working correctly. So I'm going to go up to File, Export, and I'm going to save over a previous file that's the same name. Make sure that Adobe PDF is interactive, and this is the only way that buttons and forms are going to work, is if you have Adobe PDF Interactive selected. Hit save, yes. The page range is going to be 1 through 3. I want to keep default view, default layout. I want to open this document in full screen mode. Page transition is fade, and there's several other options you can use, but I'm going to keep the fade there. And I'm going to hit export. Okay, now the document has opened up in full screen mode. So I want to just check and make sure that this is working properly. I'm going to go down and hover over here so you can see the text hint, enter or exit full screen mode. I'm going to click on that and it brings me out to the fit in window, which is perfect. And of course I can scroll through the rest of the document to see some of the other sample pages I have. And if I want to return back to the Pinterest tile page, I will click on the tile icon and it brings me right back to the Pinterest style tile page. So this is looking pretty good.